What up? This is Yinka Diz.
Peace, this is Outlaw.
And listen to the 80s Babies podcast.
And on today's episode, we're doing a 10-second take for the 5th solo studio album for Freddie Gibbs, Soul, Sold Separately, released September 30th of this past year, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And when we spoke about this, you said that it was his debut album and or something like that. And I was
I think it was what I read on the Wikipedia, is that according to the Wikipedia, which is never wrong, you never need to fact check Wiki, the project is Gibbs' 5th solo album and is first to be released on a major label.
Interesting.
Yeah. You can hear it though.
Yeah, I don't know, bro. I just, I don't know that I agree with that because while he
it's in a wiki, so
he said either in an interview or on this album, he says that when he did the freshman cover, he was the only one that was unsigned at the time.
Okay.
But he was on the freshman cover in like 2011. You know what I mean? So it's like for a nigga to be out over 10 years and then we're like, oh, this is their first album. That's something that I hate about music, the music industry.
It's not his first album. It's his first album on a major label. And it's not even his 5th album. It's just his 5th solo album.
But even the term quote unquote major label annoys me. You know what I mean? Like he's had 2 albums with Madlib, who is an industry staple for many years.
This is true.
He's got albums with freaking Alchemist. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I guess, maybe it's just a semantic thing that annoys me. But
well, nevertheless, we're doing a 10-second take because this album it's been in the streets, right? It's got some buzz, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So they want to hear us. They want to hear our takes on it. Yeah. Even though I've only heard this album 10 times.
Oh, you probably heard it more times than me.
I mean, it's a quick album. So only 45 minutes.
That's true.
So, before we even get into that, I just want to say that if you or somebody you know happens to see or be witness to somebody online or somebody out in the public space doing things and trolling you on purpose and saying things that you know are against your morals and your values and they're against things that you represent, and you know that they're just doing it for attention, do yourself a favor and don't click on those links. Don't check out that person's name. I don't even need to say the person's name. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? Okay. But if someone's writing a think piece about this person, just don't click on the link. Don't give this person any of your time or your attention or anything like that. That's how they win.
I understand what you're saying.
That is how they win. Just don't entertain it. Just don't like it. Don't share it. Don't even discuss it with your buddies. And I'm not saying no names. It could be anything. It could be anybody.
The sad thing is that the person that you're talking about, we canceled that person like 5 years ago. Yeah, exactly.
Who?
Exactly.
What?
And it's sad that they're still finding a way to make themselves, they haven't put out much actual music that would be relevant to our conversation since then, and yet have still found a way to keep themselves in the discourse.
To be honest, I don't even know who you're talking about. All I can say is that any single time that you even write or click on a link, discussing in a podcast, listening to a podcast, you're writing a think piece, whatever. Anytime you do that, all you're doing, you're just helping them win.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you at all.
What we do care about, though, right? We do care about this Freddie Gibbs.
This gangsta Gibbs.
Yeah. Mike, check.
Gibbs, ho.
And so you were saying pre-show that you were curious how I would receive this album.
Absolutely.
Why is that?
Yeah, so as I was saying to you, I feel like typically when we go to cover an album, I kind of already know how you're gonna feel about it, or how you're gonna approach what you discuss on there.
All right.
I think with this, I've heard you say things not so complimentary about Gibbs in the past.
This is true.
I've heard your excitement when you saw the list of producers and features on this album.
I was very excited.
And so I had no idea. I'm like, okay, this could go either way in terms of how you feel about this album.
Well, so to be consistent, when I am told that something is really, really good, then my expectations are raised. And the Bandana album in particular, while it was cool, it was fine, it was also something that for me felt tedious, a little tiresome, felt very repetitive, monotonous. Not an album that I would go back and listen to. So while if you
completely disagree, by the way.
But. Oh, I know. But if you just gave me like the best 2 songs from that album and we're like, yo, like these are cool, that's fine. Like I can put them on my playlist while I'm listening to other things.
Yeah.
But just that project and a lot of the other projects that were coming out, and it's not just Gibbs as well, right?
Yeah.
I feel like he and a lot of other artists were just flooding our airwaves, or the airways, if you will, with their not concept albums, but with their, you know, they're the only MC on there. They've got one producer on there, and then like they're giving us 3 albums a year like this. And it was just like, it's just a lot. Yeah. And it's just like, I don't like that to me, and this is my personal opinion. I think that that's how your art becomes disposable. Yeah. That's just my personal opinion. Y'all don't have to agree with that. That's fine.
I completely agree with you.
But for me, and so Bandana was in that run. And I believe that at the time you said that was one of your albums of the year.
Yeah.
And I gave it to, did I give it to the 85 to Africa, the Jadena?
Probably, yeah.
But that was an album that took him a while to produce. And same as this, like you can tell that there was time put into this album. And that's one of the other reasons why both of us respect Kendrick. Yeah. Right? Like regardless of the things that I said about Kendrick in the past as a lyricist, I've never, at least I don't think I've ever disrespected him as a musician, as an artist. I'd be wrong to do that. But he puts time into his projects, into his music. Yep. And I feel that this project has time into it. And I can see by the list of contributors that he had to the album, I'm like, oh, you've got Kelly Price, you've got Anderson .Paak, you've got Music Soul Child, bit of an odd choice. Yeah. But you've got Raekwon on here. This is like a good feature list. Yeah. You've got DJ Paul, okay, you know, because I fucks with a DJ Paul beat. DJ Paul, yeah. Right. So I was excited to listen to it. And off the bat, that intro, I was like, okay. Yeah. Like the intro, the rest of the album could have been dog shit, but that intro was so hard that I'm like, it just put me in a good mood. Yeah. So I've been enjoying this project while I've been listening to it the 8 to 10 times that I've heard it.
That's interesting because I had the opposite experience.
So you didn't like this?
No. I love this. I think it's a really good album. But the intro, and you may or may not know this, but the last record by Yinka Diz that came out is called God Willin. And it features the same sample as the intro. And so I feel like, you know, I had the mad face when this project started. And you know, I come from an era where, you know, you don't like, I don't want niggas sound like me on no album. You know what I'm saying? On no album.
I'm a call bias, but I'm also gonna call justified bias. I totally feel you, bro.
So I no, but it wasn't hate. It was, and you know, no diss to Kofi. That's the homie. You know, he made the beat. But you know, it made me annoyed by this era of production, and you know, the fact that, you know, through Splice and some of these other services, I love that they're there, but now, you know, you have a generation of producers that are just, you know, they find the low hanging fruit of a sound, and then they just quickly make a beat, and you know, and then the next person can just go do the exact same thing. Whereas with us, at least in our era,
for sure.
You know, we prided ourselves in getting dusty and finding something that nobody else was gonna find and doing something completely unique. So I'm just happy that my record came out months before this album did, so that I could at least be like, I don't have to be like, yo, I had my record first. Like y'all could just go look at the stamps on Spotify or wherever and see that my joint came out first.
That's true.
So anyway.
All right. Well, nevertheless, though, you did enjoy the album. I enjoyed it as well. So let's get into should we do lowlights first and get those out of the way? Do you have any lowlights?
Sure, I got a couple.
All right, go ahead.
So my lowlight, my biggest lowlight, and it's interesting because it's also kind of a highlight, but to me the theme / title like never all the way lands.
Interesting.
And so, you know, I like the concept of the SSS hotel.
Yeah, I like it.
And I like how they weave that. Okay. But then the SSS is billed as soul sold separately.
Yeah.
Right. But like we never land on like why the soul is sold separately, or like how that is relevant to Freddie Gibbs. Like it's like, okay, soul is sold separately from what? Like what does that mean to you? Why is that the concept?
He had a quote for this. I should have written it down. Yeah, he did explain it though.
Yeah, it's for me. It just kind of doesn't all the way land, and I'm like, okay, soul is sold separately.
What he was saying was, so I think if we think about the album thematically, right? And I haven't dissected every single lyric, which put a pin on that. We'll come back to that. But I haven't dissected every single lyric. But I do think that one of the things he's talking about is almost kind of similar to the Pretty Girls Like Trap album, where he's talking about the things that he had to do to try to come out just to survive
Yep.
and not be like confined to his circumstances.
Yep.
Like he's a bigger personality than his environment will allow. So he has to break those bounds, the legal bounds, to do these things so he can come up. And if that means that he needs to kill somebody or sell these drugs or this, that, and the other, then he's going to do that. Lord, forgive me, right? But then at the same time, too, is like, at what is the cost? And ultimately, like, you sold your soul for this. You know what I mean? And I think that that's at least how I interpreted what he was saying in his quote as well.
Gotcha.
If it doesn't come through, fine. I think it's one of those things where sometimes like almost like poetry, where like the art is in the vagueness, is in the spaces in between, where it allows for the audience to insert their own personal interpretation, connect the dots how they see fit. So it's like, all right, I'm going to put a whole bunch of pieces together. It sounds good. You fill in the rest, and whatever you want to fill it with, like I think
that's exactly how
I think that's what he's doing here. And I'm going to allow it. I'm going to give him enough credit because I think it sounds good that it's cool with me. So even if you're saying it doesn't work for you, I get it. It's fine.
This is definitely my low light.
Gotcha.
But I don't disagree with what you're saying in terms of how you feel about it. I do think that, that goes into my second low light, which is that, like, in many ways, this album is almost like a sample platter, where like he kind of gives you like a bunch of little bits, and then allows your imagination to kind of connect the dots. And if it weren't for the fact that I have probably 10 to 18 other projects from Freddie Gibbs, if he was an artist that released sparsely, then I would probably give him a little bit more artistic license to then go, oh, well, no, he's doing that as an intentional choice. But when you have 18 albums where you do that on all of your albums, then no, that's just the way you create music. And so I think, with this project, this is his most personal album.
Okay, because I thought it felt very personal to me.
This is his most personal album by far. However, almost no songs feel like full songs, and almost no songs feel like they're a song about something specific. So he'll have like a tangent that he'll go off about a specific story about something, and then it'll kind of jump to like a kind of another story about something or whatever. Which I think is cool and a creative choice from the perspective of the flow of the album. And for helping this generation that is an ADD generation to be able to kind of keep with you, because everybody, we want it, and we want it now, and we want it fast. It's very good from a microwave perspective, but from all right, I'm going to learn about the artist and they're going to give me a song that's about something specific, there's maybe one song like that on this project. So that's all.
Okay, well, 2 challenges to that. This is the first album he's done in 2 years, right?
Bandana's 2019, Alfredo's 2020. So you're right. And then this is 2022.
The other thing I wanted to not necessarily counter with, but I said I was going to put a pin on it. Okay. And so maybe this can go to your point, actually. But I remember when we were talking about the Freddie Gibbs album, where he came up in a discussion and you had mentioned some interview that you saw where somebody asked him about a line that he said. And his response was, look, I don't remember what I was thinking.
I'll just be saying whatever.
I'll just be saying whatever.
Yeah.
And so the question, though, is that do you think he was doing it on this album? Which I personally don't think he was. But if that is something that he does often, then it does make it a little hard to put weight to a lot of things that he's saying, because there's a bunch of little things in here. I was like, oh, that could mean this. That could be that. I could put all this together. But I was like, you know what? Let me actually just be a little bit more hands off and just not force art where there isn't, given some of his stances on his own art in the past.
I agree with that. I think that Freddie he's very talented with words, but I don't think that he puts a whole lot of thought into it.
Got you.
And so I think, if you try to break down his lyrics on some double, triple, quadruple entendre shit, you're probably putting extras on it that he's probably not putting on it. Gotcha. But I do think, though, that this is a lot more cohesive and coherent than most of his work in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
But yeah, what are your lowlights?
So one of my highlights is the voicemails, but I do have just some questions about some of the people
Choices?
some of the choices.
Okay.
You know,
Which ones didn't you like, or did you have
Jeff
questions
Ross
with?
is an interesting choice.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice to me too.
Joe
And
Rogan is an interesting choice as
yo,
well.
the Jeff Ross, the specific things said by Jeff Ross were a little questionable to me.
Well, I mean, that's his shtick though, right? He roasts people. That's his thing.
Okay.
Oh, Jeff Ross is like the self-proclaimed roast king.
Okay.
Yeah. So
But the whole like, I don't know, something about like, you know, a white man telling a black person like, yeah, you're fucking baby mamas, like blah blah. It's like, I don't know.
Why do you like rabbits so much? Is it because you're hopping out of child support?
Exactly.
I'm down here with 4 of your 15 baby moms.
mamas.
The reason why that and the Joe Rogan choices are interesting. And Joe Rogan is an interesting character in general, right? Some people have no time for Joe Rogan whatsoever.
Right.
Some
people love this man.
I have time for Joe Rogan.
Okay.
I do respect the platform, but I also understand he is problematic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Especially when he does his whole like, well, look, like I'm just a stupid idiot thing. It's like, no, bro, be more responsible than that.
Yeah.
And of course, you do. I mean, like, look, he's a white male. He's going to have a sense of entitlement. So his entitlement to express certain ideas without any repercussions is problematic. But that being said, though, I do respect. He's like, look, if there's some controversy, I will give this person 3 hours to just speak their piece without any asshole or virtue signaler coming in here to soundbite something or take something out of context.
Okay.
Listen to the whole thing. I respect that, right? The reason why it's an interesting choice to me is because of like, well, the blackest in the room, right? And the blackest in the room is so interesting. We'll get to that song, but he's talking about like blackest in the room like Sam Cooke. And then he juxtaposes that with blackest in the room like Freddie Hampton. And then he's talking about how like on other songs, he's like, well, I think it's like The Darkest Hour or whatever. When he's like, afraid that the cops might kill me because my dark skin.
Yep.
To have these white folks in particular, particularly Joe Rogan,
completely
and
agree.
Jeff Ross, even considering what he's saying, to have that in your voicemail, it's kind of like, are you trying to be edgy? Like, what is that? It's an interesting choice.
I completely agree with your point. Overarching, I will say, Joe Rogan for white people is very much what Freddie is for black people, which is like, Freddie's whole persona is like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah. And if you get too mad about what it is that I'm saying, you're taking this shit more seriously than I am.
Probably.
So he kind of is able to give himself culpability, but it's very like Dan Blitzerian, masculine man. I don't give a fuck. I just do whatever the fuck I want. Yeah. And some people attach themselves to that identity. And so from that perspective, Joe Rogan and Freddie Gibbs, I get it.
No, I get it. I get it as well.
Yeah.
I still thought I was like, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Joe Rogan doesn't say anything controversial. You know what I mean? In fact, I was entertained by what
he had. About like the mushrooms and whatever.
I was like, I just landed in Vegas. My guy came through. I got mushrooms. I got DMT. I got Kevlar underwear with what did he say? With
bulletproof condoms or something.
He said, I got Kevlar underwear with unlimited bullets or something like that. Let's fucking go. Whatever it is, it's like, all right, bro.
And I like how they slowed it down. Let's fucking go.
Yeah. But it is what it is. So, but that's kind of it. I didn't really have any other lowlights.
So your lowlight is some of the choices of the skits. That's
the personalities. Yeah. That's pretty much it. I didn't have any other lowlights.
So what highlights you got?
I mean, so first of all, the features tell me that this is like a project that he's taking seriously. And we've already gone through those, but like just Kelly Price. I prefer Quavo over Offset, but it's okay. Offset. Rick Ross. I mean, you see Rick Ross on a project, you're automatically you kind of know what to expect, but it is what it is. Anderson .Paak, Raekwon, DJ Paul, Scarface. You know what I mean? Pusha T is not a name that excites me. Right. And he does his corny Pusha T shit, but then he also delivers a really good verse. Yeah. Which surprised me. And then Music Soul Child was like, oh, that's cute. I think like Miguel would have been the favorable choice, but all right, let's throw Music Soul Child a bone.
Yeah, I think Miguel though, like if I would have seen the name, it would have made more sense. I feel like with Music Soul Child, it gave me a question mark of like, I want to hear what this sounds like. What is it? What is this? Yeah. So one of the things I thought was cool, he did an interview, and I don't remember what platform it was on, but they asked him about the Rick Ross feature, and he was like, Yeah, he's like, with Rick Ross, I mean, the type of quality he puts out,
Yeah.
and the type of quality we put out together. Like, I just love doing anything with Rick Ross. He said, but I really just got him on my album because I really wanted that Maybach
Maybach.
music.
I saw the same thing.
Yeah,
He's like, if a verse comes with it, that's cool. But I just wanted that Maybach music. Some of the production choices on here.
Yep.
I mean, you've got DJ Paul, Anderson .Paak is contributing, Justice League. Now that's like Ninth Wonder in them, right?
No. That's that. So there's Justice League, which are the people that do like the Rick Ross stuff.
Oh,
and
okay,
they're the band, and then there's Just Us League, JUSTUS.
Okay,
and that's Crisis and Ninth Wonder and those guys.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. You also have James Blake on here. Interesting choice. You got Alchemist, Kate Tronada.
Yeah.
Madlib is on here. You got some really, really good production contributions. And I think in general, the production is good. I mean, one of the things that I like is I like the fusion of the sound. So I love taking a sample and then putting the modern day 808s and like the trap hats on it. Like, I like that shit. And then you put in some like high energy brass on top of that.
Yeah.
That shit fucking works for me. So that's really, really cool.
Completely agree.
I love the incorporation of the muzak. I think it is perfect.
Muzak?
So you know what muzak is, right?
No.
Muzak is like elevator music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way they incorporate it
really
throughout
well.
throughout this project is great. I mean, you've got it with like the initial the ladies like welcome to the Triple S Hotel and that's like the sound bed for
and then he like raps
room.
over it.
And he raps over it. And then you've got songs like what's the bar sample? Too Much, right?
Yeah.
The way that
love.
transitions into the original sample. But
completely agree.
But it doesn't transition into the bars. It transitions into like the muzak jazz interpretation of that.
Yeah.
Like choices like that and the way that I'm here for all of that.
Completely agree. Completely
here for all of it. So for me, that really, really worked well. Generally speaking, even though I questioned those two personalities on those voice notes, I liked the voicemails as well.
Yep.
And I think that the balance, while the features are good, the balance of the features and the solo work I think is perfect.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes these projects they bank on the features. This one doesn't bank on the features. The features help the album, but he also has plenty of space for just himself as a solo artist, which for me really, really works.
Yeah.
And then like his flow on here is great.
Yep.
I think, is he like the breath control king right now? I mean, like, it's crazy. Like, look, I think that the thing for me is that like
I hear the punches, so I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't disagree either.
Well, Gibbs is an artist for me who I've had a lot more time and energy for in the past couple of years because I always talk about like these Spotify playlists that I go through, and his name would pop up. And those were not hip hop songs that I was skipping. Like I was liking those songs and I was adding them to my playlist to go back and listen to later. Some of them are on like just my general good playlist. Others were just on my kind of depressive mood, like linked kind of like trap energy stuff. And others were just like a good hip hop playlist. And he's just caught my attention. So I kind of like Gibbs. And so hearing his flow on this is like, I just had a lot more, I wouldn't say patience, but I'm just like a lot more receptive to his positive qualities. And he's showcasing that on this album.
Yeah.
And the other thing, like you said as well, is very personal.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's talking about things that I don't necessarily like, but I think he's being honest. And he talked about like that when he had Scarface on his record. He's like, look, Scarface is like the most honest rapper I've ever heard. So like, I don't care what anyone has to say. Like, I know if I'm listening to Scarface, I'm not listening to bullshit. And I feel like he's trying to learn from that and give us just honesty on here.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's got some embellishment here and there, but for the most part, it feels very authentic.
Yeah.
So those are my general overarching highlights.
Dope. I have a lot of the same ones. I said I like the narrator skit theme and how it's weaved in. The arrangement of both the songs and the album itself. I feel like it stays interesting as it's never predictable. I said the same as you said, but I guess I talked about it a little differently, which is like, I love situations where like you have a sample and then the producer like deconstructs the sample and then they take like the musical elements and they carry the musical elements out and remove the sample. And there's a lot of that like at the end of songs. I like that a lot. The features, everybody sounds good for the most part. And there were some unexpected ones like Kelly Price and Music Soul Child. I liked that. Length, both of the songs and the whole album.
I'm glad you mentioned that too. It wasn't just that the album was short; the songs were short, and I thought that was smart.
Yeah, I thought it was a smart choice too. And like, a lot of the songs were like just one verse or like, a verse from him and then just the feature and then it rides out and just different stuff like that. He did interesting things with it. And then I have introspection. I feel like this is a lot more introspective than usual from him. And I think one of the things that he did that was really creative on this is in setting the world of the soul sold separately thing, right? He introduces the concept of this bunny rabbit thing. And he's had it going for the last 2 years. All of the singles that have led up to this album, including the ones that aren't on here, like the record that he had with Jada and the record that he had with Schoolboy Q, those aren't on here, but he has the bunny rabbit theme. And I think it's interesting because, it's almost like when Eminem came up with Slim Shady, right? Like, it's like you almost create like an avatar version of yourself. And then you're able to like talk about that avatar version of yourself like you're outside of yourself. And I feel like he used that to be a lot more introspective than he had in the past. And also, if you know a little bit about gangs in the Midwest, like the Vice Lords use the Playboy bunny as like one of their symbols. So like the fact that he as a Vice Lord was kind of able to like use a Vice Lord symbol, but then do it like in his own way was interesting in the same way that like Nipsey with the Rolling 60s stuff would kind of incorporate that into his persona. So I like that. And then last was videos.
Oh, I didn't see any of the videos.
There were videos leading all the way up to this. The last video that I saw was the video for I think it was Space Rabbit. And like I thought that it was just so creative. So like the concept of the video, and I'm gonna butcher it, so feel free to kill me in the comments, folks, because I've only seen it once. But basically the concept of the video is like Freddie Gibbs is on a spaceship and he lands coming from some other planet. He lands in what looks like a desert. So you're basically, this is Vegas, right? So he lands and it's him and this rabbit, like this person in a rabbit costume. And so they land and they're taking off all their like their astronaut gear or whatever. And they walk through this desert and then they end up at a chapel, like one of these like Vegas, get married chapels or whatever. And so like when they get there, this black woman is marrying this dude. I think it might be like a white dude or something like that. But the chick is like, I don't know, maybe like one of his, you're kind of like, maybe she's one of his exes. Maybe she's some chick that he smashed before, something like that. I don't know. But he gets there with this rabbit and him and the rabbit are dapping people up. They're doing whatever. So like whenever the groom like kind of turns his head, Freddie's like slapping her ass, like the wife's ass, all this other shit. So then like at some point, Freddie and the rabbit dap everybody up. They pull this 6'4" up, and then Freddie gets in with the bride in the passenger seat, and the rabbit is in the back with like one of the bridesmaids or something like that. So they peel out, and it's like this whole night of like them just straight debauchery. Like they're doing coke, the rabbit's doing coke with them, the chicks are twerking, they're doing all this crazy stuff, and then at the very end of the video, Freddie Gibbs wakes up. And everybody's gone. The girls gone. The girls are gone. The rabbit's gone. Everybody's gone. And then he goes and he's like, he's fucked up. He had a crazy night. He looks at himself in the mirror, and then you see the rabbit mask in the mirror. So it was like the whole time it was all him. Like he was the rabbit doing all this crazy shit or whatever. Yeah. So I thought that was just really, really creative.
Which song was that for?
Space Rabbit.
Oh, Space Rabbit?
Yeah,
I like that song.
Yeah. So I mean, I think like the way he kind of has weaved this rabbit thing into his, his persona and like the delivery of the concept of this album, I thought was ingenious.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So let's get into our track for track analysis.
Let's do it.
And this is not a highlight for you. Couldn't be done.
It's a highlight, I guess. I'm just hating. I think, the one thing that I'll say is I think my song's better, but of course it's about my life and not his. So there's that. But I do like how they weaved in like kind of trap drums and stuff like that, because they did not do that on mine. Also, I like that they had those kind of those like orchestra stabs, dum 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 dum, like that, because that's not a part of this sample. That's somebody, whoever the producer is, added that. And then I like how Kelly Price is like, almost like tacked on to the end. Like she's not like she's not the hook. She just kind of has her own verse at the end.
Yeah.
And then I also like how like Freddie Gibbs is rapping about how he's selling cocaine and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And then Kelly Price comes on and she's like, without you by my side, Jesus, I'm gonna ride. I love that because it's like she made it her own meaning. His meaning is, yeah, they said it couldn't be done, but bitch, I sold mad coke. Fuck y'all. And then Kelly Price was like, yeah, but Jesus, like, you know, I love that. I love the part that they kept in where Freddie Gibbs kind of tries to sing a little bit, but then like he realizes that he fucking sucks, and then Kelly Price comes in. I love that. I love his sense of humor. I just think this is great.
She comes in, she takes us to church, she brings us home.
Yeah, bro, I like this shit.
Yeah, it was almost my highlight of highlights. It's not.
Really?
It was almost.
Yeah.
But I love this intro.
Yeah,
I don't have anything to add.
I wrote a couple of these. So first of all, I think that one of the things that I love about Freddie Gibbs is he's clearly, you know, a serious person. He's clearly a street person, a gang member, whatever. But he has a fucking hilarious sense of humor. And I love when it comes through in certain places. So like that part where he's kind of singing or whatever, like that made me laugh. So I like that. But I like this particular bar where he says, they tried to play us because the Jacksons barely came to visit. And I love that just because, so Freddie Gibbs might be the first artist maybe that I know from Gary.
Yeah.
But like Gary, as a kid who grew up in Chicago, Gary has a very, very linked history with Chicago. But one of the things that you always hear is like, Michael Jackson's like the only fucking famous person from Gary because there's just not a lot to Gary, right? And so like, I love how he kind of weaves the Jacksons and the Jackson story into his story throughout this album.
The thing I thought about that was clever is, first of all, Jackson's is also perhaps a double entendre for money, right? Jackson's $20 bill. But I was like, nah, I'm probably reading too much into that. So. But the thing that I enjoyed about that was the idea, and again, this is me inserting art where the artist probably did not even intend it, right? But the idea that you come from a place and when you go out and you make it big and you do tours, you don't even come back to perform there.
Yeah.
That was interesting. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but that's what I took from it.
Yeah.
One of the things I took from it.
I think so. And I think, you know, in like I can understand and relate to what he's saying. Like one of the reasons I'm IE all over my music is because like there's not that many people that are from there. And so like when you come from a place that people make fun of or people don't really have much to say about it, I feel like it gives you an extra kind of chip on your shoulder. And I hear that chip all over his shoulder on this album, and I love it.
Got you. All right. Well, that transitions very smoothly into Blackest in the Room. And this is where we first get our little muzak and we get our host, our narrator, with a welcome to the Triple S Hotel.
Love it.
Please pay attention to all our options since our selections have changed. Those little London accent or British, whatever accent it is. I don't know where it's from, but
it reminds me a lot of what Tribe Called Quest did, right? And I think that's probably where they took that concept from.
I think so. Yeah. But yeah, this is really good. I love the transition between the muzak and then the trap beat. Yeah. But then also he had a line here that I liked where he said, cut off all my bitches from last year. I cleaned my roster up. A nigga did the rebuild. Tons on the skizel. I was like, I just started laughing.
He said, tons on the skizel. Shows I need 150,000 like I'm Ezel, which I thought was great. And then he had the like
150,000. Well, we can sell our court right now for $20. Yeah, so you wrote that one down too.
I wrote it down too. Yeah. I loved it. I think I completely agree with you. That transition from where it's elevator music, and I've never heard the term muzak before, but I think of it as elevator music.
That's fine. It's the same thing.
So it's elevator music. He starts rapping over the elevator music, and then it transitions to this like kind of trap inflected Alchemist beat. But he's rapping perfectly on time in it. I love it. I loved Blackest in the Room like I'm Sam Cooke at the Fountain Blue. Blackest in the Room like I'm Sam Cooke at the Copa. Like I just really, really love like where he took this joint.
But then he references that again, and he's talking about the flip side of that, right? Where it's Blackest in the Room like Fred Hampton.
Right.
I forget the line, but he's talking about they gonna shoot me up, and he says something else as well. And I was like, yeah, I mean that's just just the different sides to that. I appreciated it.
Yeah, no, that's super dope. I like this joint a lot.
So first two tracks are highlights for me. Then we get into
Yeah.
Pain and Strife featuring Offset.
Mhm.
This is Gibbs doing his best Bone impression on the hook for sure. Gotta make this money, man.
So Gibbs is very influenced by Midwest, but particularly Bone.
Gotcha. And they're from Cincinnati?
No, they're from Cleveland.
Cleveland?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sorry.
It's all good.
No
but Midwest, you know, and so like, but I do love how you can tell he's influenced by kind of East Coast boom bap on some records, but then other records he'll give that Midwest influence. And I really like kind of how he did that here.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily feel like he said much on this particular record or that the record was about all that much, but I do love like how the instrumental breaks down at the end, and then you know with the instrumentation again. And really, I really love everything about this except I'm cool without Offset. Like I didn't necessarily need him.
This was not a highlight for me. It's not a low light. I don't have any low lights on the album. It's not a highlight for me. Offset wasn't great. Like I said, I prefer Quavo. I actually like Quavo.
Yeah.
And yeah, the beat was cool. I appreciated the transition at the end more than I appreciated the beat itself.
Yeah.
It's a fine song. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's not one of my highlights, but yeah, it's cool.
Gotta make that money.
But then we get into Zipper Bags, and so we have our Kaytranada production.
It's interesting because this beat doesn't scream Kaytranada to me. Like
It does not.
if I
It does
didn't read
not.
that it was him, I wouldn't have thought that it was him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do love like that almost that sample at first almost sounds like it'd be like a Ninth Wonder sample a little bit with like that the vocal, the or something. I don't know. But this was a highlight for me. It kind of has there's that UGK sample from I think
the
it's from
Pepsi
Sippin' on
joint.
Scissor.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it's just got a great vibe and an arrangement to it. One of the things I love is how he like weaves the verses in with the refrains and with the hooks.
The zipper bag. The bag.
Yeah. So this was a highlight for me. I didn't have much else to add to it. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I really like the Pimp C vocals at the end.
Yeah.
And I like you said, like this is his like melodic, like Bone inspired flow. So it's kind of for both. And so he's got the I don't feel right. Feel right.
Yeah.
So it just has a good bounce to it. It's not like, again, not saying anything insane. I will say, you know, I've never sold drugs before, you know, so, but I do, you know, I feel like I'm following his story.
Yeah.
And he does a good job of weaving his story and his experience into like this record.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So now we're getting into Too Much featuring Moneybagg Yo. And this was probably the only feature I didn't like.
Really?
I mean, because I think
you thought Offset was better than this?
Yeah, well, because I think on Too Much, like Gibbs is really going at it with the flow.
Yeah.
And Moneybagg Yo
Is
cannot keep up.
Yep, that's true.
You know what I mean? So because of that, like Offset doesn't.
Got you. He doesn't jar you in that way.
Yeah. Whereas Moneybagg Yo is like, yo, you really can't keep up on this track.
Yeah.
Because of that, it's not a highlight. I'm fine with the sample. Again, though, I'm more in love with how they transition the sample out of the song.
I love it too.
Versus how they use the sample to make the beat itself. But it was fine. It wasn't a highlight for me. Although I do think his flow, I think he was just on one with this.
This is a highlight for me.
Gotcha.
I mean, you my favorite group or one of my favorite groups is Switch. I love the DeBarges. I love their whole family. I love everything they've ever done. So, you know, all this love as a sample, I love. There's a song by AZ called Problems. I love that record.
Problems,
I love this joint. So I love this beat. In fact, I wrote, this beat makes me want to do the Ric Flair dance. I just love it. I love this beat. This beat is great to me. This sample is amazing. Freddie's flow is fucking impeccable on this joint.
The hook is catchy too.
And the hook is great.
Too much. I be fucking other niggas bitches too much.
and there's a video for this one as well. I don't think I've seen it, but I do know that there is one.
All right. So now we get into Lobster Omelet featuring Rick Ross.
Yeah.
Is this a highlight for you?
Yeah, but mostly because of the transition of the last song to this song. And so, like, similar to what you were saying, I just fucking love how the song transitions.
The transitions are really good.
Yeah.
I was excited to hear Rick Ross, and when you hear the song, it sounds like Rick Ross would be great on it. He's fine. I've heard better Rick Ross contributions than this one.
I agree. But so, I am somebody who is Jake One Hive.
Gotcha.
So like there's two producers that can do no wrong for me. Jake One is one of them and Bink is the other one. Like those two guys, anytime their name's there, I'm gonna love it. So this is a Bink beat. I mean a Jake One beat. And then man, like Freddie Gibbs, his flows and his content are great here. So I mean, I personally love Freddie Gibbs on here.
Gotcha.
The Rick Ross, I could do without. I wrote down a couple of lines here. So he says, in my neighborhood, you was either 5 or 6, you had to choose.
Yeah.
And the folks in them was still in my starter jacket and my shoes. They laughing at me at school, so I moved. I ain't got shit to lose. That particular 4 bars is like the most relatable shit I've ever heard from him.
What did you take from you could either be 5 or 6, you had to choose?
So
what did he mean by that?
Talking about Midwest gangs.
Oh, okay.
So basically, Freddie's a vice lord, right?
Gotcha.
And so vice lords are, their symbol is a 5-point star.
Gotcha.
And then folks, are their enemies, and their gang symbol is a 6-point star. So basically, he's saying in his neighborhood you had to be either a vice lord or folks.
Gotcha.
And if you didn't choose, you was gonna get beat up every day. Which takes me back to like what we were talking about with the Dog Pound album,
Gotcha.
where I'm saying some of these neighborhoods, you kind of like, unless you want to get fucked up every day, like you kind of have to join a gang.
Gotcha.
And that's basically what he's saying. His story is, right. So he comes from a neighborhood where he's getting beat up every day or whatever. They're stealing his shit. And the people who were doing that are the folks, because he says the 6s. He said the folks stole his starter jacket and his shoes. He had to move, so he moved to another neighborhood and he joins the Vice Lords.
Gotcha.
Right. So that whole story makes so much sense, and it takes me back to being a young kid growing up in Chicago. And so in my school, starter jackets were the thing, right? For everywhere.
Pretty much everywhere, starter jackets were the thing.
And niggas were getting killed for them. So there was a period of time where there were 2 starter jackets that were banned from my school. You couldn't wear a Chicago Bulls starter jacket because niggas would kill you for it. And like kids were either getting killed or beat up really bad.
The other one, Cowboys?
And the other one was actually Washington Bullets. And the reason was because it was Bullets, there was a gang that was in my area that co-opted the Bullets coats. And they would wear them, and if other people were wearing them, they would, like take them.
I would have suspected well, I guess you didn't have Vice Lords in Chicago, but Dallas has 5 stars. Oh, well, that's what I would have suspected. Yeah. No, that's why I said Cowboys.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think the Cowboys were so big because it was 90s.
You also had the Dallas Stars, is it?
Yeah.
As well?
That's true. That's true.
They had the same logo.
I think the Stars were co-opted more for Vice Lords than the
Gotcha.
But it was the UNLV shit that the Vice Lords would wear the most. But anyway,
Gotcha.
So yeah, this whole shit was fucking relatable as shit to me.
I like this verse a lot.
Yeah. And then Freddie being known as this Vice Lord, I feel like this gives you the storyline of before that, right? Because most people, when they rap from the perspective of being in a gang, they're so invulnerable, right? Like it's just like, yeah, don't fuck with me, I'll kill you. But here he's telling you this story of like before he was in the gang, what happened and like what led him to where he ended up being.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I love this joint. This Freddie performance is immaculate to me. It's one of the best verses from him on here, to me. So yeah. Anything else about this song?
No. But we go into Space Rabbit, and you were just describing the video. This is a highlight for me.
Okay.
I love the beat.
I love this beat too.
Yeah, this is just it just is that tripped out vibe. They're just like, yeah, Space Rabbit. Like, I kind of feel like I could be like in a video game doing whatever.
Yeah, like I feel like this production and the story he's telling you takes you into this world, like his world. You know what I mean?
Again, you have like the verses and the hooks blending together very, very well. But it just it's very atmospheric without trying too hard to be atmospheric.
Agreed.
And it's just
Boy Wonder put his foot in this beat.
Yeah, Boy Wonder. Yeah, he did
I think the drums are great on this beat.
They are.
But I like his story here, right? So like I said, he's very introspective on this album. So he says, I remember back when I used to want to be G Unit. Record label said I sound like Buck. They had the young rabbit fucked up. Yeah. And it's funny because then I thought about it and I'm like, that nigga does kind of sound like Buck. I never would have thought of it, but he does. And it makes me think about, being a young artist and trying to come up and like people not understanding or seeing your vision. Yeah. And then like you're trying to tell them like I could be all this great shit. And in their mind, they only see what already exists.
Right.
And so like I really like that. And then I liked his whole like Cocaine City, cold as a dope fiend titty. That joint, because it tells you that he's influenced by AZ, right? I want cheddar so I can front up in at 850. My whole committee like the Puff L's and Lil Jiggy. You know what I mean? Like that that East Coast influence. You kind of hear it on this record.
Yeah.
And then you get the Jeff Ross skit at the end.
Jeff Ross skit. Yeah, I mean, look, that's his whole spiel is just like cracking jokes. Like, and when you roast, like, you don't hold anything back. Like, you can be as fucked up and offensive as you want to be. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I did laugh though when he says like, "Come on, I need you. I got you on a spot on the comedy tour opening up for T.I." I started laughing.
Yeah, that was funny. That was funny.
But yes, now we get into Feel No Pain, and this is Anderson .Paak and Raekwon.
Yeah.
I dug this. I'm not sure who is the main producer on this. I know that Anderson .Paak contributes a little bit to it.
J Pounds.
So it is J Pounds?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. What did you think about this one?
I like this joint a lot. I think the Anderson .Paak hook is great.
Yeah, it is good.
He actually sounds a little like Mos Def on this to me. Do you know?
Oh yeah.
Do you know the song "Good Night" by Kanye West and Mos Def?
I'm sure.
It was the bonus song on Graduation. It's one of my favorite songs by Kanye.
You played it for me before.
Yeah, I have. And so, but his voice, he sounds like Mos on this joint. That hook sounds similar to it. I think this is the most nuclear song here, and it's
right in the middle of the album too.
It's perfect, and I think like it's interesting. Raekwon's on here because you almost don't even need him.
Yeah.
Like it feels refreshing to hear his voice.
Yeah.
But like by that time, I already love the song. I don't even need Raekwon on.
I love that it's Raekwon and not Ghost because I feel like Ghost is probably the more obvious choice. But it's like nah, like you got to respect Raekwon as well.
Yeah.
I love the bass line on here. It sounds almost like that RZA Razor Sharp bass line.
Okay.
But the other thing too, I love Anderson .Paak. I love how he's just so fluid and so flexible and adaptable. Like, he's not a rapper, but he raps a lot.
Yeah,
and it's perfect.
He's
you know
so
what
good.
I mean?
He's so good.
So that's a highlight for me. Now we get into Rabbit Vision.
Yep.
And again, on all these songs that are entitled Rabbits, this is where he's got like the weird people in the voicemail. So this one is where you got Joe Rogan at the end. Yeah, he says a lot of shit broke my heart, but it fixed my vision.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, highlight for you?
Yeah.
Gotcha. I don't have much to say about this. It wasn't a highlight. It wasn't one of the standout tracks for me. But again, I still like the song though.
I love this song, and I think the reason is, as I mentioned before, right? Like, Freddie's not usually the most introspective, and he doesn't give you a whole lot of like shit that's like specifically about something.
Yeah.
Like most of Freddie's music is mostly just about the that he incorporates, and he's great at incorporating different flows. But this is the story that, this is the age-old, it was all good just a week ago on a Jay-Z album, right? Like, where he's telling you the story of, yo, yeah, I'm a drug dealer or whatever, but like now my boy snitched on me, and like this is what this feels like, and I like the a lot of shit, it broke my heart, but it fixed my vision. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, coming up, you have this expectation that you all are gonna, you're gonna ride forever and all this other stuff, and then you see, nah, my man's like is acting funny type of a deal. So I thought that was great. I love Justice League always, so I was happy for the Justice League feature. And then this is also the song where he addresses the Jeezy thing, right? Because when Freddie Gibbs first came into major labels, he was Jeezy's label. He was on CTE. And then there was like this big, battle where then all of a sudden he had beef with Jeezy. He's dissing Jeezy on every project. They're talking, he's saying all this stuff. And so this is the one where he like, admits his own wrongs, right? And he's like, yo, I was immature. I had to grow, etc. I liked that a lot. And then lastly, I liked
that line too.
Lastly, the one I really liked was treated this rap game like it's 2300 Jackson Street. I rap my way up out the G. And I love that because it's again a nod to the Jacksons and how the Jacksons came from Gary and they basically had to create a hustle to get themselves out of the hood.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really, really dope.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now we get into is it PYS?
Yeah.
Featuring DJ Paul. Is that Pimp Your Slut? What is it? What is PYS?
I don't remember because they say it all throughout the song, but I don't remember.
Pimp Your Slut.
Yeah, some shit like that.
Anyway, it's my highlight of highlights.
Really?
I love this.
I know you love DJ Paul. Shit. Yeah, and 3-6. I know you like that.
I mean, look, I
don't even know what it's called, but it's your favorite.
I never even purchased a 3-6 album. I'm not going to, right? But like when they hit a vibe, they hit a vibe.
Yeah.
And this track hits a vibe. And I love it like that they sample like that old hook from the 90s or whatever. And then they put it in with this contemporary beat. It's got the twang on there, and you don't even need Jazzy J. You just got DJ Paul on there just doing it. Yeah, I fucks with the vibe of this track. Yeah. I didn't even really write much notes other than this is just my highlight of highlights. I love this song.
Yeah, I personally love the musical timbre change.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you start with these like more like kind of soulful things, and then this like, you know, it pulls you out into this like the 3-6 world. Mm-hmm. But, you know, Freddie just, you know, he just is right in with it. Like he in pocket. Like it's not like it does from him, it doesn't even sound like he's out of his element or wheelhouse at all. He just immediately just jumps in and starts killing it with the melodic flow. And then we get, you know, a DJ Paul verse as well here.
And I thought it was decent.
Yeah, and it was cool. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So now we get into another highlight for me, and this is Dark Hearted.
Yep.
I play the Chopper Never Jam.
Yeah.
He look, you got James Blake on the production, which I thought is a really clever choice.
Yep.
But he says, dirty 30 in my hands, shoot him up. If he ain't DOA, we shoot up the ambulance. Mm-hmm. I was like, yo, that's some cold-blooded shit right there. Yo. Yeah. Like, oh, he didn't die? Oh, fuck, shoot them who are trying to help him out too. Like that's real cold-blooded.
That was Vice Lord shit.
Yeah. But this is a highlight for me. Do you have anything to add to this one?
I just like a lot what the record is doing musically. And I feel like Freddie just is like really skating on this flow wise. Like he's really, really, really good at finding pockets and just, you know, flowing, switching up the flows, etc. The record is really dark, but it really kind of tells you more about who he is as a man. And then this ends with like another where it's like a musical break of the instrumentation, where the instrumentation flows out of the sample. Yeah. I love that.
Gotcha. So now we get into Gold Rings featuring Pusha T.
Yeah.
Days of Our Pies. That shit was so corny to me when he said that. It was
corny too.
His flow is actually, his verse actually on here is pretty decent. So first, before we get into the Pusha T, Freddie Gibbs is jacking the Me and My Bitch flow. And he doesn't try to hide it either, right? Like he's obviously referencing Me and My Bitch from Biggie. But there was a couple lines in here that he said that really stuck out to me. He says, loudest nigga in the room, you ain't a killer, you a cartoon. Which reminds me of American Gangster when Denzel's speaking to his brother. He said, like, you're wearing a clown suit. Right. It's like the loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room. Right. That shit actually hit me in the heart when I heard it the first time, when Denzel said it. Because I used to dress, we'll just say flashier.
Okay.
Right? Like I used to have like fedoras and like these collars that were popped up, like whatever. I was like 23, 24 years old. I heard that shit and I calmed it down. But when I hear Freddie Gibbs say it, it reminds me of that. Yeah. And he also says, I love this line. It's like, bet I won't pay them bitches back. I play my cards with the cartel. I forgot how he sets up the line. It's like, I play my cards with the cartel.
I like that.
I was like, oh, okay. That's you hard if you're gonna go that route.
I think he said to pay them bitches back, I played my cards with the cartel. So basically like, I had to deal to recoup and shit.
Yeah. But no, I think that I like these opening bars from Pusha. Even though like the way he comes on the mic is so fucking corny. It's like my cocaine novella. Yeah. These are the days of shut up. But so many RNs I done made, waitresses I done saved, the blow drop off for bitches who ain't learned to braid, matured all the sorors and every AKA, Michelle's blueprint showed the era in the ways. For whatever reason, it just kind of stuck out to me. But like, the waitresses he done saved, like I don't know, I get it. And then the women who didn't learn to braid, I don't know, it stood out to me. I thought it was a good opening to his verse.
I think a lot of I saw a lot of fanfare around this verse. People were excited about it. It didn't really do it for me. I think this felt again like kind of the Pusha that is more impressed with himself than I am with him.
Well, that's just Pusha in general.
Yeah, I think that I did like the I am the street dream Nas with the cummerbund, just because it's like, oh, that's a cute like reference to a Nas that we all know. But I didn't think that this Pusha verse was all that personally.
But at the end though, we have the guy. His name is Gerald Slink Johnson. He's the guy who played like Jesus in that like parody sitcom or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, it's Jesus. I just came down from the mountains smoking some some kush with these white boys. I want to light it up with you. Talk to me. Tell me your problems, Freddie. It's Jesus. I don't know. I got a kick out of that.
I like this beat a lot. I like the, that like heart sample. And I want to just say that Seven Thomas, the dude he's done a few of the beats on here, and I've liked every single one that he's done on here. So I need to do my research a little bit more and know a bit more about what else he's done. But and I like in Freddie's verses how he had the and we won't stop knocking till the cops come knocking, and the beat follows that cadence. Yeah. And he does it like 2 or 3 times in his verse, and I like that as well.
All right. So now we get into Grandma Stove featuring Music Soul Child. Highlight?
Yeah.
It's a highlight for me, but man, I gotta say, this song is fucking tragic. Yeah. I smoked the blunt to take the pain out, and if I wasn't high, I'd probably try to blow my brains out. On my grandma's stove, I drained the pot and scooped the cane out, and I can't write my raps because the tears might flood the page out. Mm-hmm. The whole song is just fucking tragic as hell. It's really sad, but it's a highlight. It's really good.
Yeah, this was the record that actually, I guess, kind of got him in trouble with his baby mom. Cause
oh, really?
He has some bars in here where he says,
yeah, he's talking about his personal situations for sure.
Yeah, he says, we could have fixed the shit between us, but I was fighting my demons.
Yeah,
I never knew shit would lead us to child support subpoenas. And then he says, if it wasn't me, it'd be an athlete or another artist, right? So he like calls her out, and then she hops online, and she's like basically like, yo, I'm minding my own business. Like, you're a deadbeat dad, whatever. Like, you need to get up out of here, whatever. Which is interesting because I'm kind of two minds with it, right? Like, number one, I like that the artist is giving us some introspection and telling us a bit more about their story and their perspective on their story. But the second, which is I think is the more prevalent mind, is like, I can't necessarily feel sorry for these people who go out and target groupies and then get mad at them for being groupies. Like they find a woman who they think is unscrupulous, and then they go and they have a child with that person, and then they're like, yo, well, she's a groupie. And it's like, well, then bro, like, why did you seek that person?
I felt the same way.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I get it, but I don't. So anyway.
He did say another line as well, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher it. It says, all my niggas' energy is rap, sell dope, ducking the reaper, ain't no sleeping when you juggling both. My amigo told me fuck the rap shit because that shit was a joke. Lambo can't get me in the booth. I get my hair on in bulk. The idea that like, the energy is rap or sell dope, trying to juggle the two, I thought was like, oh, I get where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not in the sense of I understand it because I didn't live that life, but I'm just saying like, I feel what he's saying.
Yeah. And I like the origin story parts too, right? So at the beginning of the verse, he starts with, he says something about like, the shows was hella empty, but fuck it, I got my niggas in. Yeah. And I feel like I could really relate to that just, because I remember the time frame when he was coming up, and like, I was making music in these times too, in 2010 and, these like kind of early times of Freddie Gibbs, like 2010 to 2012 maybe. And it was like Freddie was one of many of these artists that were kind of trying to come up. And I mean, that is the grind, right? And it's like, okay, well, I might not be rocking a stadium, but like I'm doing something that I love, and my friends are able to hear me do it, and that's good enough for me. And so I like that, that kind of story of a come up, and then, him talking about his things of like, then he meets the baby mom, and then, doesn't know that it's going to become this tragic story that it is, and et cetera. And he had another bar that I really like, and it's not even a bar, but it's just the saddest part about success is that the hate come from it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was dope too, because then he kind of lands on like, okay, I had this origin story where I went through all this stuff, and now I'm where I wanted to be. But then at the same time, like, I'm still not happy. I'm still miserable because of these other things.
Yeah.
And then the Music Soul Child feature was a little interesting. Like, it was odd, but at the same time, it worked. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. So now we get into the CIA crack lemonades. Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
This is the most Freddie Gibbs song on here.
Oh, what'd you think of
it? Yeah,
I like it. It's a highlight for me.
Yeah.
I liked it. I thought the messaging was good and appropriate. The idea of kids, whatever, killing someone for clout and then posting it up on the gram.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we've seen some of that shit in real life. I mean,
yeah.
I won't call it no names, but the dude who had, Bobby Shmurda, right? Like, they got in trouble for that shit, right? Like, they did some dirt in the street, and they literally put it in the song, and the cops were like, no, we didn't have these details, so, yeah, you're going to jail.
What about the nigga that made the song he killed his man's, and then he made a song while he was running from the cops called "The Race." Did the race, and then was posting on Instagram of himself in all these different places, like, "Yo, the cops can't catch me. I'm still free. I'm at this." You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just the era we in, bro. Like, it's
Yo,
insane.
it's just
It's insane.
like it's just a fucking game. Like it's a joke.
Yeah.
And the thing that is tragic to me, and this is a little bit of a tangent, it's just that like I'm not judging anyone for this shit. It's just like life is so much more precious and valuable to that. And to live your life this way means that for whatever reason, and this is why I'm saying I'm not going to judge anybody, but for whatever reason, there's that disconnect between you living your life and actually what you value from life, like the things that can come from life, and the fact that like that shit is a game and that's just fun to you,
That's sad.
right? Like it's not even like maybe you're a sociopath who just doesn't care about.
Well,
these
that
things,
kid
right?
probably is.
And maybe he was,
Yeah.
maybe he was, but it's just like it's just I don't know.
It's sad, man. It's we're in the attention era, you know, and I mean, that individual that we started the show talking about, you know, is a good example, right? That's somebody that's older than we are, but at the same time,
Is it?
attention
Are you sure?
is. Yeah, but you know, I mean, this is somebody who's
You don't act
who's you know older than us, but attention is so important to them that you know they're willing to do anything out here to try to get it. And but I think the thing I like the most, to, you know, back to this song about this kind of crack Instagram and AIDS thing, right, is that it fucks with like a black conspiracy theory, you know, and it turns it on its head. So you know the conspiracy theory, right, is in that black folks talk about in the barbershops and you know sitting around while they're getting their hair braided is like, yo, the CIA put crack in the community and you know they gave us AIDS, you know, they invented this shit to try to kill us all off or whatever, right? And so I like how Gibbs is kind of weaving, well, Instagram into this kind of already conspiracy theory that we have. I enjoy that.
Yeah. Nah, so it's definitely a highlight for me. Yeah. And then we get into it. We close it out with Decoded featuring Scarface.
Yeah.
Scarface, the cheat code. Not his best contribution, but I don't care. It's Scarface.
Yeah, I agree. It's just I like that he's there more than I like the song itself.
Yeah.
I also thought it was an interesting choice, like kind of as a closer, because it didn't make me feel like, oh wow, we landed. Yeah. But I do like Dahi, and I like the choice of having Dahi as a producer on this joint, because he's just like the things that he chooses in terms of the sounds and stuff like that. Like his production is so like kind of sparse and minimalist, but then he has like just certain interesting choices that really draw you in as a producer. So shout out to Dahi. I like this record.
Okay. Well, I think that should wrap it up for our 10-second take on Freddie Gibbs' Sold Separately, which you don't think the theme landed? I think it landed well enough.
I like it, but I mean, you know, the same criticism I have for all of Freddie Gibbs' projects. Like, this is the most conceptual album that he's ever had, and it still, to some degree, comes off like a charcuterie board to me. Like, it's you know, there's kind of these disparate concepts that you have to connect the dots. you have to connect the dots yourself. That's
got you. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. Let us know what you think about the album.
All right. Here's a question.
Go ahead.
If you had to give this album a rating on the Outlaw scale, I don't know if that's 1 to 5. I don't know if that's 1 to 10, whatever it is. Just off the top of your head, what would you give it?
I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's tough for me to assess something in a week.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's weighted heavily towards my, I guess, takes on modern music. And I've said this before. One of the reasons why I love Anderson .Paak is because I don't have to make any concessions.
Right.
And I think when I listen to a lot of today's music, regardless of the genre, I have to make a lot of concessions, right? Yeah. So, you know, I'm rating it on that scale. So I think 4 out of 5 is very solid. But that being said, though, like, he's doing so many musical things in between the lines that really, really work for me. And the fact that both the album is not too long and the songs are very short. Yeah. And he is flowing his ass off. It's like, nah, this is good.
Yeah. Because I think I would probably give it like a 4.5 in current era.
That's fair too.
Like if I had to rate it across all the eras, it might skew down.
Yeah.
But for this era, this is like a 4.5.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe that's fair. So maybe for this era, maybe it's like 4.5. This is a good project.
Yeah, great project.
Like I enjoyed this project more than I enjoyed like Nas's recent works. Or who's another? I mean, look, I really like the Kendrick album.
Mhm.
But of some of the other ones that I've listened to recently, I like this one
Yeah.
quite a bit.
I
So,
hope that Freddie continues to give us kind of more introspective works like this
mhm,
going forward, because I really enjoy it.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, so that should wrap it up. Yeah. Peace.
Peace.